Welcome back to another Swordmaster Publications presentation. My name is Ernie Lawrence. Today we're going to be studying Judges chapter 13. Now, Judges chapter 13 is the beginning of a very popular story within the book of Judges, that of Samson. It's a favorite for Bible classes, and of course, when we're younger, we get some of the highlights, if you will, some of the cool parts. You know, he had long hair, he was really strong, and things like that. But as an adult, we go back and read these things, and we can tease out a lot more from the story than those popular bits that we get as a kid. And so we're going to do that today. Judges 13 isn't actually about Samson's service as a judge, but the kind of backdrop and where he comes from. We're going to talk about his parents mostly today, and we're going to see that they receive a special visitor, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that and go into some depth on who that actually is. So let's get started. Judges chapter 13 and verse 1. And the children of Israel did evil again in the sight of Yahweh, and Yahweh delivered them into the hand of the Philistines for 40 years. So again, we're back to the idea of the Israelites not being faithful. But one of the interesting things about this is whenever you see the Israelites going into this period of unfaithfulness, you do have evidence that there's always a remnant of people who do remain faithful. And we're going to see that here with Manoah and his wife. So the other thing that I want to point out here is this is a disconnect here in the chronology. We're talking about now the Danites. We're talking about the Israelites kind of as a whole, but remember the Philistines are down in what we refer to today as the Gaza Strip. The idea of Palestine, the Philistines, those are terms that are related to one another, and so we're not really talking about something that's necessarily happening in linear fashion, as we saw in chapter 12 there, where it talks about and then, and we have these time periods. So there's some overlap that's going on in the chronology here as we read about these events leading up to Samson. So the Israelites are doing evil. They're going back to serve other gods, and so Yahweh delivers them up to the Philistines, and there's a whole generation where they're in service to the Philistines. And it says in verse 2, there was a certain man of Zorah, of the family of the Danites, whose name was Manoah, and his wife was barren and bare not. So you have this man Manoah, his wife, and she doesn't have any children, very much like Sarah. And it says, the messenger of Yahweh appeared unto the woman, the angel of the Lord. Now we've talked about that phrase before, and we've said that the angel of the Lord specifically refers to the Son of God, or God the Son, before he becomes Jesus, before he's born of Mary and becomes the man Jesus. And I'm going to show you that there's a few things in here that people might look at and say, well, maybe this is just an angel or a messenger of Yahweh and not the pre-incarnate Christ. But I'm going to show that I think that those objections don't really hold, and that this is actually another example where we see the pre-incarnate Christ, the actual second person of the Godhead, coming down and interacting with mankind again. But it says, the angel of the Lord appeared unto the woman and said unto her, behold, now you are barren and bear not, but you will conceive and bear a son. Now therefore beware, I pray you, and drink not wine or strong drink, nor eat any unclean thing, for lo, you will conceive and bear a son, and no razor shall come on his head, but this child shall be a Nazarite unto God from the womb, and he shall begin to deliver Israel out of the hand of the Philistines. Lots of interesting, very rich stuff going on in these few verses here. So number one, the angel of the Lord tells Manoah's wife that she's going to bear a son. That's the first thing. The second thing is that this son is going to be a Nazarite from the womb. Now, what is a Nazarite? Well, we can go back to number 6, and you can see here at the very beginning that there are some very specific things. Number 1, they were not allowed to have anything related to the vine, to the grapes. They can't touch the vine. They can't eat the grapes. They can't have vinegar. They can't have any of the alcoholic, anything, nothing related at all to grapes. And they were not allowed to cut their hair. Those are the 2 main things. But they also were not allowed to touch dead bodies, and they couldn't even, like if they had taken the Nazarite vow and let's say a relative of theirs passed away, they could not touch the dead body. They couldn't make themselves unclean, even for a close family member. And so it was a pretty serious vow. It was a vow of separation, of really focusing on being holy, and the idea was that separation from unclean things, a real strong focus on doing everything that was possible to focus on God and being separate from the world. And so these are the things. And we've talked about this before, that if you're separating yourself from wine and strong drink because of the vow, normally that means you don't necessarily have to do that. And so in the Old Testament, drinking of alcohol, generally speaking, was not condemned. And of course it's not condemned in the New Testament either. But here's the interesting part. This child is going to be a Nazarite from the womb. Okay, first of all, it's a child, and this child is going to be a Nazarite from the womb. That is, from the point of conception to the point of birth, the child is in the womb and is a Nazarite. The Bible is being very, very clear here in the story of Samson that human life begins at conception, and all the days of her pregnancy she was not allowed to have the wine or strong drink or any unclean thing, because of the child. And if the child was just a clump of cells or some of the other nonsense that people speak of today, then this story would not make sense. We understand that the Bible is true, that God is real, and so holding to that standard, the Bible is very clearly teaching that human life is beginning in the womb and should be treated as a person. But one last thing to talk about before I move on here is you have a very strong indication medically of the things that the mother takes in are things that affect the child. And so if she were to take in alcohol, that affects the child. If she were to take in unhealthy food, or if she were to take in anything, any kind of chemicals introduced into her body, those affect the child. And while this may have been something that was kind of known in a general sense, the very specific idea of how much what the mother took in affects the child, I think here's one of those things where the Bible is being a little bit more medically knowledgeable than what humanity was at this time period. And so it was enough that if the child was going to be deemed a Nazarite from birth, that the direct translation of, we might talk about how the mother processes things that she takes in, and passes those on to the child in a processed form, that it's no longer, it wouldn't necessarily be any longer wine or alcohol or unclean food, or it would just be the molecule. No, there is something of the nature of these foods, these drinks that are taken in, that are passed on to the child as those things. And so we have to be careful, especially mothers who are pregnant, what they put in their bodies, because they are passing those things on to their children. Okay? So anyway, it says that the child will be a Nazarite, this is verse 5, unto God from the womb. and he shall begin to deliver Israel out of the hand of the Philistines. So this idea here of beginning to deliver Israel out of the hand of the Philistines, it was going to be a process, a long process, and it was one that Samson would start. Then the woman came and told her husband, saying, a man of God came unto me. So notice that even though the writer of the book of Judges says the angel of the Lord appeared, she just sees him as a man. She thinks it's a man. A man of God came unto me, and his countenance was like the countenance of a messenger of God, very terrible. So she thinks he's just a man, but she's like, it was the way that he looked was very, very powerful. There was a lot there. I think it might have been a messenger of God in the sense of the celestial being. But I did not ask him from where he came from, and he did not tell me his name. So she didn't ask those questions. She just listened to the message, and that was it. Okay, I didn't ask him where he came from, and I didn't ask his name. He didn't tell me his name. But he said, behold, you will conceive and bear a son, and so don't drink wine or strong drink or eat any unclean thing, because the child shall be a Nazarite to God from the womb to the day of his death, so his entire life. And this is the only example that I can think of in the Bible where you had somebody who doesn't take the vow for themselves, that this was something that was put upon the child. And so everybody else, you see in number 6, that they would take this vow and only be for a certain amount of time, and then it would end, just as a matter of them refocusing on God, kind of like fasting. The practice of fasting is only for a short time. So this is a kind of a unique exception to that idea that Samson didn't choose this. And so verse 8, then Manoah entreated Yahweh and said, O my Lord, let the man of God which you did send come again unto us, and teach us what we shall do unto the child that shall be born. Now here's the interesting thing. The man of God, the angel of the Lord, has already told Manoah's wife what to do. Like, they should have listened to that, heard that. But I think Manoah really wants confirmation here. He's asking again to see personally. He doesn't really believe that his wife saw this person, or that this person really, he wants to see for himself. He wants to have that confirmation that, yeah, this really was a man of God, or that was from God and not just some guy messing with his wife. So so God hearkens to the voice of Manoah. So I think that seeing God actually listen to Manoah and answer his request means that Manoah is not really asking out of some kind of nefarious purpose or some kind of a necessarily a doubt of God. He's not challenging God in any way, or being wrong in his request. He just wants confirmation that what his wife is telling him is true. And so God listens to him. He listens to Manoah and says, the angel of God came again unto the woman, and she sat in the field, but Manoah, her husband, was not with her. But she makes haste, and she runs, and shows her husband, and said unto him, behold, the man has appeared unto me that came unto me the other day. So she recognizes the angel of the Lord. Oh, excuse me. She recognizes this as the same person that spoke with her the other day. So verse 11, and Manoah arose and went after his wife, and came to the man, and said unto him, are you the man that spake unto the woman? And he said, I am. So at this point, again, we see that they are referring to this as a man. He looks like a man. He talks to them like a man. He is being referred to as a man. And so because of this, we're going to see some interesting interactions that I'll point out as we come to them. So verse 12, and Manoah said, now let your words come to pass. How shall we order the child, and how shall we do unto him? And the angel of the Lord, the angel of Yahweh, said unto Manoah, of all that I said unto the woman, let her beware. So he's like, I'm going to tell you all the same things that I told her. I'm not telling you anything new. Just, You do all the things that I've already told you to do. She may not eat of anything that comes from the vine. Okay, so there's eating. She's not allowed to eat anything that comes from the vine. That was the Nazarite. Neither let her drink wine or strong drink. So there's the whole spectrum. Nothing that comes from the vine, the grapevine. But she may not also eat anything unclean. Okay, and this is for the wife. This is the mother of Samson. She's not allowed to have these things while she's pregnant. Now, she's not a Nazarite. Okay, but because Samson is supposed to be a Nazarite his entire life, that means from the moment of his conception. And so this is a very clear indication that life begins at conception. The human life begins at conception. And so all the days that she's pregnant, she's not allowed to have these things. And so all that I command her, let her observe, in verse 14. And then Manoah said unto the angel of the Lord. Now remember, it's calling this person the angel of Yahweh, but Manoah still sees this as a man. And he said unto the angel of Yahweh, I pray you, let us detain thee until we shall have made ready a kid. So he's going to sacrifice, and you can see in this the corruption that Israel had of worshiping just pretty much anything that came along. And Manoah sees this guy as either a man or maybe like a lesser god or something along those lines. There's a little bit of confusion here, because Manoah isn't saying, hey, why don't you stay with us? We're going to prepare a meal and we're going to honor you. Where he should be saying, we're going to sacrifice to Yahweh in thanks for the things that he's done. And so I think that because of that confusion that Manoah has, you see this man, this angel of the Lord, saying, no, I'm not going to accept that as worship. So look here in verse 16. It says, and the angel of Yahweh said unto Manoah, though you detain me, I will not eat of your bread, and if you will offer a burnt offering, you must offer it unto Yahweh. For Manoah did not know that this was an angel of Yahweh. So this passage here, this verse, clearly indicates that, number one, the angel of the Lord knew that Manoah did not recognize him as the angel of Yahweh, just thought he was a man. And then you have the angel of the Lord is recognizing the idea that Manoah, in seeing him only as a man, is not going to be offering anything unto Yahweh, but he's going to be offering to this man. And so as such, the angel of the Lord does not encourage Manoah to do that. And for whatever reason, you have this disconnect where the angel of the Lord typically will accept worship. So you see this in Joshua, when Joshua meets the angel of the Lord on the road to Jericho, or you see the angel of the Lord interacting with Moses, or some of the previous times that we've looked at, the angel of the Lord being God the Son. He does accept worship, but in that sense, the people knew who he was. Manoah doesn't. Manoah only sees a man, and so to not encourage that false worship of things outside of Yahweh, you see the angel of the Lord refusing to accept that worship at this moment in time, because it's important for Manoah to understand properly who he is worshiping when he worships. And so this is kind of like when Jesus is talking to the people and they say, good master, and he's like, why do you call me good? Only one is good, and that's God. And so Jesus isn't saying, I'm not God. Jesus is actually claiming to be God by saying, you're calling me good, only one is good, and that's God. And so you have this teaching moment, I think, that's going on here, where Manoah's confusion needs to be dealt with before the angel of the Lord will accept that worship. And so, verse 17, Manoah said unto the angel of the Lord, what is your name? that when the sayings come to pass, we may do thee honor. So again, Manoah is saying we want to honor you, and honoring you as a man, as a messenger of God, but not as God. Manoah does not understand that this is actually God, and so because of that confusion, you still see a reticence to accept worship and honor, because of the honor belongs to God. Why do you call me good? Only one is good, God. And so verse 18, the angel of Yahweh said unto him, why do you ask after my name, seeing it is secret? He doesn't tell him. He doesn't want to promote that confusion in Manoah. He wants Manoah to worship the one true and living God, and to only worship him. So Manoah took a kid with a meat offering and offered it upon a rock unto Yahweh. So now you have the proper target of that worship. And the messenger did wondrously, and Manoah and his wife looked on. So the angel does something wondrous. There's a miraculous thing. Now remember, he looks like a man. They're calling him a man. They think he's a man. But suddenly you're going to see he is finally revealing himself as this supernatural being, and I think accepting that worship in a way by what he does. For it came to pass, when the flame went up toward heaven from off the altar, the angel of Yahweh ascended in the flame of the altar. And Manoah and his wife looked on it and fell on their faces to the ground. And I think it's at this point that they recognize, we've been talking to God this whole time. And I think that this is why they do, and listen to the words that we see spoken as they come. It says, but the angel of the Lord did no more appear to Manoah and to his wife, and then Manoah knew that he was an angel of the Lord. So now Manoah recognizes who he was talking to. And listen to what he says. Manoah said unto his wife, we shall surely die, because we have seen God. So the angel of the Lord is now finally being recognized as, hey, that was God that we were talking to. We were actually seeing God. And before, that reticence was there because Manoah only understood that this was a man, but now he's worried, he's concerned. We saw God, and no man can see God and live, and now we're going to die. But his wife, being a little bit more level-headed, comes along and says, if Yahweh were pleased to kill us, he would not have received a burnt offering and a meat offering at our hands. So in the ascending up in the flame, we see that was a sign that they accepted, or that God accepted their offering. So he received a burnt offering and meat offering in our hands. Neither would he have showed us all the things, nor would, as at this time, have told us such things as these. In other words, think about it, Manoah. If God was going to kill us, why would if he had told us about, hey, you're going to have a son, and don't have grapes, and don't have wine, and don't have unclean things? He told us all of these things. If he was going to kill us, why go to all that trouble? Why tell us all of these things? And so she calms him down, and things are okay. And then it says, the woman bare a son, and called his name Samson. And the child grew, and Yahweh blessed him, and the spirit of Yahweh began to move him at times in the camp of Dan, between Zorah and Eshtaol. And so here is the story of how Samson comes in. A lot of really good things in this story that I think teach really good lessons for us today to understand some things about God's creation and pregnancy and all of those different things that we covered. But you have a beginning here of a life that is very popular and has a lot of sorrow in it. And we're going to learn a lot more from Samson. I think there's a lot of rich story here of deeper things than maybe what we've gone into with some of the other judges. And I think that's one of the reasons that he is so much more popular, is there's more to him. We get more of his story than some of these other guys. So that wraps up Judges 13, and I thank you for joining me. As always, look forward to your questions and comments, feedback on these videos, and we will see you next time for Judges 14. We'll get into Samson's time as a judge, get into the thick of things. Until then, my name is Ernie Lawrence, and this has been another Swordmaster Publications presentation.